Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Reese T. Lightfoot. We'll be discussing his fantastic book, Devotion for My Demons, available for purchase through Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I will say, Reese was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business, Workbook Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, do yourself a favor and contact Workbook Press. And you can find out more information on them at workbookpress.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Reese here on the line because, listen, once you go to his Amazon page, you go to the Barnes & Noble page, really Target, wherever books are sold, you'll be able to locate the book. But it doesn't get much bigger than Amazon, right, or Barnes & Noble. But once you go there and you start to do some research on it, and you see what the book entails, clearly, it's a fictional narrative, right? So, first and foremost, I'll be the first one to say it. After the year that we just had, and unfortunately still continuing to go through, I can surely use a journey, right? Something to take me out of the confines of the walls that I found myself stuck in. And this is such a fantastic book to really expand on, right? To really take that safe journey with. But in addition to that, one of the underlying messages and one of the underlying themes is something that is so applicable to everybody involved. Now, again, the story is fictional. So that underlying message and theme with regards to the character, the main protagonist that we're going to be following, is slightly different, a little more literal in his sense. But for us, one of those messages, one of those underlying themes is about everyone has their own demons, right? Pun intended. Everyone has their own demons, and throughout life, it's about learning to accept and deal with them. And I absolutely love it because I know during moments of my own life, when I was younger and I was coming across my own demons, it wasn't anything that I ever wanted to face head on and deal with, right? I was trying to close them out as much as possible and avoid them. And I'll be the first one to tell you, you can't do it, right? Whenever you have those demons that you are battling, the only way to overcome it is to accept it, right? Know that this is a part of you, but deal with it, right? Roll with the punches, figure out how to make it work. And again, as I stated, when it comes to the protagonist in this story, things are taken up a bit, right? It's a little bit more realistic for him, and I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm not going to steal Reese's thunder that way, but just always keep that underlying message in mind. And without further ado, let's jump right in. Reese, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction. Thank you for being a guest. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're very much looking forward to this. We're very honored to have you here on the network. And, as I stated, it's a timely book in the sense of we can just embark upon this safe journey, leave reality for a little bit, and really just get lost in a fantastic story. So, Reese, I know we have so much information to cover, but let's hold off before jumping into the book. Start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a native to Pittsburgh, PA. I recently moved to New York during the pandemic. Right before the pandemic, I should say. And I've always had a bit of an imagination. I've always had a bit of a creative streak. I used to do visual arts in high school, and I've always been in the comic books, video games, anime, movies, you name it. And so, I've always considered myself a bit of a geek, and this is my first chance to, dabble in the writing world, and I decided to go with it.
There you have it. Fantastic. And we're glad that you did, because now we have this fantastic book. Without further ado, Reese, Devotion for My Demons. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so Devotion for My Demons is it's a story that follows a hero by the name of Tyler Pine. And pretty much Tyler lives, for the most part, a normal life. And it becomes a bit monotonous. It becomes a bit, typical 9-to-5 job, kids, wife, dog, all routine, And pretty much Tyler begins to learn that his so-called normal, boring life is a little bit more extreme than he would like. He eventually figures out that he has been, without spoiling anything, somehow married into a family of demons, and somehow, some way, he is mixed up with their quest to pretty much they've been trapped on Earth for a duration of time, and they're trying to find a way to escape. And he's been wrapped up in that quest as well. And going through this quest, he learns a lot about himself. He learns a lot about his family, and he just learns a lot about being a hero, and learns that there are certain things that he can't run from and certain things that he has to deal with. And some of that being, his family, which is a race of demons.
Now, Reese, let's go into the concept of inspiration. Now, a multi-part question here, but first and foremost, what inspired you to embark upon a creative journey and write this narrative?
You know what? There were a few things that actually inspired me a lot. So a friend of mine is actually, he was working on the novel, a good friend from back home in Pittsburgh, and, he would always ask me for his help, and we had a lot of similar interests. We both liked anime and comic books and stuff of that nature and video games, and I helped him a lot with his novel, and, he kept saying, maybe you should write one, and I kind of laughed it off a few times, but he was one of my biggest inspirations to really write this book. Outside of him, I've always been a bit of a comic book buff, so I've always been inspired by like Marvel Comics, DC Comics. I've always been inspired by like anime and Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, Trigun, different animes that I've watched growing up as a kid. And actually being my childhood is probably one of the biggest inspirations that inspired me to write this book. Just being able to dive back and we lose that sense of childhood when we get older and we fall into the adult life. We lose that sense of childhood, but me thinking about my childhood and thinking about the toys and thinking about the games, that was one of the biggest inspirations for me.
What would you say was some of the challenges that you faced in creating your narrative?
You know what? So my writing style is more, my writing style feels more of like a movie script. And that's just something I've always been able to relate to is movies. So when I write, I often write as if there's another person in the room that I'm sharing lines with. So one thing that I did have to overcome with such a writing style is that that's a good way to use dialogue, but that's not really a great way to tell a story. So that was one of the things that I had to overcome with that, was putting in the pieces to actually tell the story along with the dialogue within the story itself. That was one of the hurdles that I had to overcome, which was very challenging for me. Even though I have a good imagination, it was very challenging to actually put the narrative on paper. So once I figured out how to do that and combine it with my script writing dialogue skill, I was able to come up with this book.
Reese, that was such a fantastic thing that you said, right? I mean, everything that you said was, I guess, very poignant and helpful. Now, you talked about how your initial writing style was very conversational, but writing a novel, it doesn't translate. And what's interesting is when you said that, it really made me think back to other authors that I have interviewed that have said similar things to that, right? Because with a novel, with a book, it's not going to be, you'll have dialogue here and there. So there's conversations built in sometimes, but there's so much more subtext that needs to be articulated to the reader. And those are the things that you're not going to get through the conversation, through the dialogue. So I love the fact that you went there and you pointed that out, because I think that's a great advice for any new writers out there listening in. The style in which you're writing for needs to be addressed. If you're doing a screenplay, absolutely, it's all dialogue, so you can do that. But writing a novel, understand the medium in which you're in. Now, following off of that, in terms of research, Reese, what type of research did you do in preparation for this book?
You know, in terms of research, so when I actually wrote this book, I had a lot of time to think because, as I said in the beginning, you know, we moved to New York, and of course, as soon as we moved to New York, pandemic happens. So being in lockdown, I had the time to, you know, at the time I was out of work, being fresh to the city, so I lost all the job interviews that I had. So the research that I went to was essentially just authors that have come before me, authors that have also piqued my interest in the past, you know, Lord of the Rings, even something like the Twilight movies, just to get, you know, a bit of that darker tone. And I would just go back and watch different animes. One of the biggest anime inspirations that I used was actually an anime by the name of Tenchi Muyo. I pulled a lot from that anime, incorporating the aspects of that particular show. Some of the other research I actually did was just my actual family itself, or I should say, you know, my wife's siblings. You know, living around them, being around them, they can get a little crazy, a little chaotic at times. So, me, I'm not that chaotic and not that crazy, so I kind of just like hang out in the background, and that was one of the inspirations that also that I was able to pull from, was just that their energy and how they act. So I was able to use that as one of my also inspirations, as one of the tools that I used to write with.
Guys, again, here on the line with Reese T. Lightfoot. We're discussing his fantastic book, Devotion from My Demons, available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Now, Reese, I'm curious, what would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book? Or if not a highlight, you know, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting prior to embarking upon the journey?
You know, one of the highlights for me was just going through the process of it all. You know, I've encountered so many people that have told me, you know, I started a book, and it ends up sitting in the closet. And for me personally, I don't like to finish projects. I'll start a project, but I'll never finish it. So for me, one of the highlights was just going from the full start to finish with a project that I've started. You know what I mean? I said it started out as one chapter or a paragraph, and then it turned to a chapter, and then 2 chapters and 3 chapters. And I think that journey itself was the biggest highlight for me. It just really, I just get really excited knowing that I was able to finally put myself into a project fully and reach an end result with the project. You know, it feels good to actually apply that and accomplish something, you know, when you actually just put your mind to it and you come up with a body of work that you're really excited about and really happy about. So yeah, that was big for me.
You know, Reese, when I was doing the research preparing for this interview and I came across your book, you know, one of the first things that came to my mind was really seeing this book on the big screen, right? Either as a television series or as a film. And, you know, there's a lot of different ways that this could play out. Now, from what I had established, and you can clarify me, please, if I'm incorrect in this, but it doesn't seem like it's a comedy, right? I mean, it seems like it's a fantasy novel, of course, and almost suspense, maybe even borderlining thriller. So it's a very serious novel, and I think that's great in and of itself, and that can be easily translated to the big screen. But there was also something that I started to think about in terms of a comedy, right? And just the predicament that your main protagonist finds himself in, dealing with this family that he now is within, and, you know, the different ways and the different comedic elements that can come from just that type of position. I'm curious, Reese, have you thought about making this into a television series or a movie?
Honestly, that would probably be one of the most amazing things ever. And you're right. I put bits and pieces of comedy into the actual book itself. So I definitely pulled some comedic elements in there, and I would love for it to be on the big screen. I think that was actually, when I wrote the book, I think that's where what I was more so envisioning was like, this is a movie for me. This is what if I were to make a movie, this is what my movie would be about. And I do use those comedic elements, and my character himself in this book, I can visualize him on the big screen, just pretty much seeing himself in these. He notices that the situation that he is in is chaotic. He notices that it makes no sense to him. It's totally, it's out there. It's zany. It's kooky. You know, he doesn't really understand it himself, and he acknowledges that. And I think that's where the humor aspect comes into it as well. And I totally could see it on like a big screen. You know, that would be great if someone were to reach out and say, "Hey, we want to make a movie of this." That would be like almost a dream come true as well.
Absolutely. No, I agree, man. Like I said, that was one of the first things that came into my mind. Like, it's a fantastic narrative. It's a great book. But oh my God, it could easily be translated. And there's so many different ways that this can grow and develop. And I absolutely can see it on the big screen, man. Best of luck with that. I hope it does get picked up. You know, as we start to wind down and tie up this fantastic interview, Reese, being an artist myself, I love having this platform to be able to pay it forward to other artists out there listening in. Now, we talked earlier in this interview that was great advice for new writers out there, right? In terms of knowing the particular structure, knowing the medium in which you're in. Writing dialogue for a screenplay is one thing. Writing dialogue for a novel, not really where you want to go, right? Bits and pieces here and there. But so there's a little wisdom there that we've already started to go into, but I want to give you another opportunity. So either go more in depth with what you've already established or give another piece of advice for any new writer that's out there listening in right now. What words of wisdom can you relate to them?
You know what? For anyone that is willing to dive into this medium of writing, the words of wisdom I would say would be to, you have to accept that you're going to fail a little bit. You're going to take some lumps within the process. You know, not everything that you come up with is going to be gold. Not everything that you come up with is going to be brilliant. You're going to, I had a dry erase board in my house when I was writing this book, and I would write things on there one night and then get up the next morning and read it and say to myself that this is ridiculous and I hate it. So you're gonna come across those bumps and hurdles and pieces of material that don't make sense, and you're gonna scrap a lot of things. But the advice I would give is to keep pushing through it, because everything's not going to be perfect, and you got to fail a little bit to succeed. And I think that's the best advice that I could give anyone is to just if you start something, stick with it, even throughout the failures, even with the pitfalls and the plot holes that don't make sense and the mistakes that you made and the deleted documents and deleted files. Just stick with it, because at the end of the day, it's about just being perseverance and
Absolutely.
You got to lose a little bit to win.
Great advice. And guys, listen, adversity is part of life. Nothing good ever really comes from complacency, right? If you want to achieve something great, you're going to have to put yourself out there and going through. And as Reese just said, there's going to be bumps. There's going to be hurdles that you're going to have to overcome. But really, even those bumps, even those hurdles, what it's doing is it's fine tuning your craft, right? View it all as something that is actually helping build your craft, right? It's like that old adage, diamonds are made from pressure, right? Diamonds come from coal, and the way that they become out at the end and being so beautiful is through that pressure, right? And it's a fantastic analogy, wonderful words of wisdom. Reese, last question, man. Are you on social media, or how can our listening audience interact with you?
I am on social media. If you want to, I am under Reese Light Writes. That's REESE _light, LIGHT _writes. That's that's where you can find me out on Instagram. That's where you can find me out on Facebook. So if you get a chance, definitely go check the book out, pick it up. I hope people enjoy it. And
there you have it. There you have it, guys. Listen, a lot more can be said, but nothing else is going to be said, okay? The onus is on you now. You know what you have to do. There's no getting around it. Amazon, Barnes & Noble are the places you have to go. Devotion for My Demons is the book you have to get. And Reese T. Lightfoot is the author you have to thank for bringing it to your table. An amazing narrative, an amazing journey to get lost in. And what a fantastic gift for anybody else. What a great journey for you to take, a great gift for anyone else. Let's grow, let's develop. Remember that underlying theme is something that is beneficial to everyone involved, regardless of the fiction around it. That underlying theme about facing your demons and learning to overcome them, right? Face them head on. That is something that will truly be beneficial to everyone that picks it up. Reese, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Thank you very much for having me. And also to just say, the book has fantastic artwork in it. If you get a chance, the artist is named Olga Brindar, Pittsburgh native as well. Please be sure to check out her art as well.